In this video, I'll show you how you can use Figaf IRT to do testing of your SAP PI PO system. In the previous one, we set up, collected some test data, and now we want to run this and verify that everything looks as expected. So the way testing works is we would send the message through the system, the PI system. It will be processed as the original message, and then we will compare the messages and verify that they look identical. And then there's obvious, or could be, some fields that is supposed to be changed, like dates, like number ranges, that it's okay, these are being changed, and then you want to set up ignoring of these elements. So the way you want to do testing is you want to just select the test that you want to run. It will then just press run. And what will happen is the IRT agent or the IRT system will create a new XI30 channel that looks identical as your existing one. And then it will send the message through this one, so you'll be able to process with the same modules as you had in the original one. What happens then once the message has been processed, it will actually be sent into the same IFlow ICO as the original message. So if it was coming from a file system, it's instead now coming from a XI30 channel, and it's being processed the same way. So from a systems perspective, nothing really changes, and it's being processed correctly the same way until we receive the last part of it. And here we would also have a module that will then save the message, and then we can compare the expected result. This is what we got from our productive system versus the actual result. This is what we currently have and what's being used. And then we can see, okay, we got a date here that's different, that's okay. So we can just double click the line, we'll get an ignoring element here, and then that will be an XPath expression that we want to be able to use to ignore dates for future elements. A little about what is covered and what is not covered in this. So we're able to test sender modules, routing, mappings, receiver determination, dynamic properties, synchronous messages, and the things that is not covered. So this is all internal PI, everything that's happening inside of it. We're not able to test what's happening outside of the PI system. What do the raw SOAP calls look like? Do they look any different? Is the IDOC any different? And then we want to look for we don't cache lookup value, so if you have a lookup, then it's not cached. And the same file content conversion, if you're using the normal file content conversion, it is not tested either. So there we're just testing the XML documents that's being sent to this file content conversion. If you're using the file content conversion module, it will be included. So we do have some different configurations here that we'll just cover. So we got a comparison type that is a list of different objects that we can use for comparison. And here we got auto, that's the normal approach. You can specify it as XML, JSON, EDFACT, X12, binary. And then you can specify how you want to do ignoring of these different elements. As we saw before, you can either do it here or you can do it by click to add them. Then we got the dynamic configuration. If there's any of the dynamic attributes that we want to ignore, we can also add it here. And then we got order expression. So order expression is if you have documents For instance, if you have a purchase order that's being split into line items and each of these line items is a different output document, then you obviously want to specify line number 10 with line number 10. And the way you do that is just by putting in an XPath expression that points to line number 10 in the receiving document. That way it's quite easy they will just be ordered the same way, and it will see, okay, I got an element here that has line number 10, then I need to compare it with this line number. And then we got some results, notification delay. So this is if we expect that this flow could run for a little longer or something like that, then we just want to have a way of delaying the report generation for this one. Then we got the checkboxes below that contained a little more textual description. So run migration test with module on sender side. This was the part I mentioned that as default it will just use one generic XI30 channel. But if you say that the modules on this communication channel is important, then you can set this this check mark, and then it will create a new separate ICO or communication channel, an ICO for this flow that would allow you to test with the same modules and ensure that they look the same. We had some customers that wanted to be able to generate unique numbers in each message, and the way we got around this was we wanted to use the number range module from the B2B toolkit, and then we're just inserting this module into it, and then you as a user can just specify these number ranges using the B2B toolkit. They will be, so the module will then process these and they'll convert it to real numbers. Use sync, recorded sync response. So when you're calling a synchronous message, we got 4 stages that is relevant. So the first is the initial one the client sends. We got one that's the message just before we deliver it to the server. We got a response that's coming back, and then we got and response is the third stage, and then we got a response delivered to the client. On the third stage, the response we're getting from the server, this is what we are meaning with this. So here we will save the original response that we're getting, put it into the message, and then process it this way. So this is really useful if you're doing stopping. If that service that you're calling is not available on your development system, then you want to use this this option. And then we got a part that says don't send message after testing, and this means that if you're putting this on a message, the message will be processed like it should be. Once it receives the IRT module, it will throw an exception, and then the IRT system will also cancel this message. That means it will never be processed and will just be discarded with the normal garbage collection. The benefit here is if you don't want to send this message to a partner or the system is not there, then you can obviously use this. It's not really useful if you're doing synchronous calls, because then we are not able to send it to the receiving system, unless you just want to test your mapping to this system. We showed you the easy way of adding these XPath or some of these other options if you are using JSON, or JSON is XPath. If you're using text, you can specify it in different ways. If you have IDFACT and X12, it's also quite easy to add. You'll get the full line, and then you can just edit it and figure out which element is important here and put stars into it. In this part, we'll just want to show some of the different objects that we have and why they're important. So our main object that we're grouping all objects into is testing template, and this is really useful if you know that you have some tests that you want to run at a specific case, or you know that these tests is regarding a specific customer. Then you want to use the testing template that specify or a business area. Then you have a business area test case that contains all the business area, all the test cases that this business is responsible for. It can contain one or more test cases. It can be scheduled, and once if it's scheduled, it'll send you an email that says, hey, I ran this report, I got this, and I got these errors coming back from it. And then you can view the last result and all other reports. Let's just go to that one. So here we have our testing templates. We got our course one here. We can see here the total number of messages in all of these. We will then just select all of these, and then we'll run, and we can then see here we got our testing result that the status is unfinished. So we have a lot of batch jobs that is being scheduled in order to ensure performance, and no user will pull down the system. Then we have these batch job and scheduling them and ensuring jobs is processed correctly. So this was our test case, and if we go into edit mode here, we can send report by email, and then it'll be the email that you have specified on the agent configuration. And if you set the schedule, then it will be processed at the time the scheduler is set. So we can now see that we have some results here. So next one is, next on the template is agent objects. This is the one that contains object about a sender agreement, ICO, and what kind of configuration that we have done for making sure that this test case works. So it contains the information, header information about the ICO. It enables you to save information that you want to record again. So if you want to do a recording again, it's also saved here. And then it contains global configuration about which elements to ignore, and a list of the test cases that this one has. So if we want to go to this one, we would click here, we'll click on the agent object. So here we can see we have this agent object with some header information. We have normal recording is with these. I'm going to do record 3 of these. We got our testing configuration that I showed you just before, and then we got some test cases here. And we can see we ran this test case we just created. We can see all the data that we had, and this was the one where we're editing it, I think. We can see our results, so we're getting an error. Let's see what we're getting of error, and then we'll see the view results. So now we are on the test cases. This is so a test case is information about what are the different the data that we have, an inbound and multiple outbound messages. These are grouped into one test case. So one inbound message is equal to one test case. And then we got this information about or grouping them based on either when it was created or if we have some partner specific or message specific attributes in this. And then we have a list of the different results for testing. How did this test work? One more thing is the test result detail. So it can be a little confusing. What are the different stages? But the way we're processing this is with batch jobs. That means that you may say you want to do a recording or a test, but it's not started immediately. It will be started once this scheduling is done. I think it's done every minute or so, every half minute. So in the beginning, it'll just have not sent, it'll be sent, and then compared. And then we got some results that we could expect to see, like not received, so we didn't get this message that we expected. An unexpected message is if our mapping is incorrect, or we received some message that we did not expect in this scenario, and then error and success. So that was the last slide in this, and let's have a look here. So we view our results, we can see our errors, so we can see our differences here. We'll add this one, double click here, we'll say date is fine, we want to ignore that. We can view our binary differences, so we can see that what has been changed and what has been added in this element. So it's really easy to just go through it. The binary difference is really useful if you have some XML document with some exotic characters and that suddenly make changes. Then this is really a simple approach just to see what was changed, which field was added. Let's see if we got the other one here. And then we can view the PI logs on our system. This one gives you access to payloads, the message monitor if you want to see how this message was processed. And then we can just run it again. And once again, we got this one for remote results. So if we have used the HTTP, we'll be able to see it here. So we can see now it's unfinished. We have received this messages, but status is unfinished. So we haven't compared these messages yet, and we are just waiting for it to be processed, the job. So now, because we have added this ignore element, all of these is successful. So that was all I wanted to share with you in this short introduction to IRT, what it is, what kind of functionality, and why have we set all the different check marks as we have. I hope this made it a little easier for you to understand and get started setting up test cases and working with it.